Hey cuties, and welcome back to my channel. We're here in my kitchen because it is my aunt's birthday, and for her birthday I decided to make her some homemade cinnamon rolls from scratch from my own family recipe. Well, my own recipe. Anyways, but yeah, so we're here in my kitchen because I'm actually gonna start baking. If you've never made homemade cinnamon rolls from scratch, they take 4 to 5 hours depending when you want to get started and how you want to perfect them. And I want to perfect mine for my aunt today because it's her birthday, because why not? So I actually have my little cookbook over here, and I'm basically just gonna start getting some of the ingredients ready because some of it has to be room temperatured and whatnot. So I'm actually gonna start preparing a little bit before, and I'm actually gonna start baking at 2:30, but I'm just gonna be preparing my ingredients before 2:30 so they can soften and do whatever. Basically, the only thing that out of all my ingredients that need to be like prepared is just the butter, because it needs to be room temperature. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get the yeast out, because in case you didn't know, where bread comes from, it comes from yeast, which is a fungus if you don't know. Anyways, yeah, so I'm gonna get my yeast. Turn on the kitchen light to go with better lighting. But this is the yeast. And I know you can't see because it'd be like backwards, but it's basically Fleischmann's rapid rise fast acting dry yeast. This is what the recipe calls for, so this is why we get it. I'm pretty sure you could use like the little yeast that comes in a jar, but I'm not too sure. Don't quote me on that. Okay, so here's our butter I'm gonna be using. It's a KitchenAid, and I love these blenders because they're literally so hefty and big. I'm not gonna be filming every single step that I do because I don't want to give away my recipe, but I will be showing little clips of it here and there, and like probably like the mixing part and me like mixing it and all that good stuff. So the thing is I'm not gonna start too early because it's only 2:10 right now, but I'm not gonna start too early because if I start too early it'll be done too early, and we're planning to go over there around like 5:30 to 6. So during the time I'm baking and stuff, my grandma's gonna be making my aunt a lasagna, but she's not gonna put it in the oven and cook it. She's gonna make it raw basically, and then she'll take it over to my aunt that's while it's raw, and she'll just tell them that don't eat the lasagna because it's raw, but y'all can like put it in the freezer, y'all can cook it, whatever y'all want to do. So she's basically prepping a lasagna for them, but it's not gonna be cooked basically. Like she's gonna add the meat and all there, it'd be like that, A fun fact about yeast, if you did not know, is that you cannot put it in milk if it's like too hot, because it'll literally kill the yeast and then your bread won't rise. So that's a baker's tip. Mija, mijo. And yeah, and if the milk is too cold, then the yeast won't activate. So I'm like, sis, but it has to be just right. That little story from like Three Little Bears where the bears get rushed out of the home by that girl. Yeah, it has to be just right, because if not, the yeast will literally die, and we do not have enough money to get another packet. So while I'm here waiting for it to be 2:30, I'm actually gonna go ahead and wash the mixer bowl, because you never know if there's any spiders or spider eggs or God knows what in the bowl, or maybe there's been a bug that has laid an egg and you can't see it and then you're gonna eat it. You just never know. Okay, I've already washed the bowl, and now I'm just gonna dry it and get all the water out. Gotta make the bowl dry because we don't want any of our ingredients getting stuck in the water, because water is not part of the recipe, so water needs to go. For this recipe, I'm not gonna be using the whisk, and I'm not gonna be using the little paddle. I'm not gonna be using the paddle either, but I will be using the hook. I know this is gonna be excited because most of y'all been like, oh, I've never used the hook before. I'm like, sis, yes, I already know. The only thing that I will be using the paddle for, actually I take that back, I will be using the paddle, but just to like get the dough, like just to get the dough started. And then once I see it forming, then I'm gonna start using the hook, because the hook it's what it's made for. It's made for dough. So it's gonna be like turning it, lopsiding it, and all that good stuff. So literally this is actually yeast, and if you've never smelled yeast before, yeast literally smells like beer. That's all I can say. Yeast literally smells like beer. Period. There's no like, oh, it smells like this. No. It literally smells like beer. It literally smells like beer. Yeast smells like beer. At least this brand does, and this one. Maybe I'm just Ciao. Anyway, so the recipe only calls for 2 packets of these. They come in 3s, but we're only going to be using 2 packets of these, which kind of sucked because then I feel like whenever you get in, like, you know, another pack of 3 is going to call for 2, so you'll cut the 2 off and then you'll have, you know, 1 left over. So that way when you get another pack, you'll really have 4 packets because, you know, call for 2. Here's 2, you cut off this one. Then the previous one of these, you know, you just add it and there you go, you have 2. But I feel like, you know, why add 3? Because then I feel like some people just throw this one away and it could be used for like something else. Maybe like a small loaf of bread or, you know, something like that. You know what I mean? So made a homemade lip scrub. If you guys want the recipe for that, it's so simple and you probably have all the ingredients in your household. So let me know if you want a quick little tutorial on that. The time be taking so long though. Okay, so I switched my camera angle to wide angle mode, but I'm gonna start by putting our little paddle onto this little like hook arm thingy because like I said, you know, I'm gonna start off by using the paddle so it can get all of our ingredients mixed well, and then once it starts forming the dough, I'm gonna start switching to the hook so it can like get all in there, make it lopsided, get all good in there, make all the ingredients get sloshed out in there. And yeah, got it. I'm gonna be getting our measuring cups out because for this recipe it literally takes measuring cups, like a lot of measuring, but I feel like if you have like 3 or 4 measuring cups for this sweet, it'll be better because you're just going through measuring cups and measuring things. So I feel like for me, I would literally have like 3 or 4 measuring cups, but we only have 2 right now. But we have a big one and then the small one. I'm gonna be pouring 1 cup of milk. I just gotta find the 1 cup on here because I'm kind of dumb. And I found it, so I'm gonna start pouring my cup of milk. And I'm sorry that clip was so jiggly. Like, I did not mean for it to be like this. I'm sorry. Also going to be using a whisker, not the blender one, or the mixer one, but I'm actually gonna be using one of these because, like I said, you can't have it too hot or too cold. It has to be just right. So usually I put the milk in for like 1 minute and I stir it and blow on it. And also, then when I feel like it's just right, I stick my finger in there and I'm like, okay, it's just right. Then that's when I add my yeast. And then you stir it. And then after that, you have to let it proof for about 10 to like 8 minutes. So yeah, that'll probably be the next clip that's showing. So I'm getting the milk out and I'm gonna pour my 1 cup of milk. I've never actually seen one of these big ones before until like one day I noticed it like a long time ago and I was like, oh my god, that's so big. And then here's like this little baby one. Okay, so the 1 cup is right there and I'm gonna start pouring it. Perfect. So I have the 1 cup of milk, perfect. And what we're gonna do is combine our sugar and our milk together, and then we're gonna put it in the microwave for at least like a minute. So I added my sugar in, and then I'm gonna just kind of stir it to get all the contents and sugar stirred, and then we're gonna go ahead and place it. Probably gonna do 1 minute. This may be too hot for it, but I'm gonna be checking it between, probably when I get down to 30 minutes, I'm gonna go ahead and take it out and check it and stir it around to see if it's just right. So while that's going in the microwave, we're then gonna go ahead and get our yeast, and that just fell on my foot, and we're gonna cut to where we have 2 packets. With these, it's kind of hard to cut because they're like attached by like a thread right here, and this is almost open, and once it gets open, you can't save it. The yeast will get stale. It's gonna be done, and I'm gonna go ahead and shake the milk. Oh, and that feels hot. Okay, so let's go ahead and take the milk out. I can't explain to you what milk and sugar tastes like, but it kind of just, from what I've heard, it tastes like breast milk. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so I stuck my finger in it and it's too hot. So I'm going to be mixing it, getting the sugar all stirred, and then I'm going to keep blowing as I'm mixing the sugar and milk together. Again, I have not added my yeast. So it's been about like a few seconds now and it's still kind of hot, but it's getting cooler. This is what it kind of looks like. It's just kind of brown. this is what the yeast looks like in the milk, and I'm gonna just go ahead and stir it. Right now, it smells like fresh bread. It smells like bread, but in a minute, it's gonna start smelling like beer. So I'm gonna just get all the sides of it and make it look pretty well. Can't really see the color difference, but it's brown. I know it kind of looks like white still, but I mean, you could kind of see it. On camera, it looks kind of light, but in person, it's like a dark brown. It looks like mud water. I am stirring the yeast, making sure to get all underneath it, making sure there's nothing left. And now my yeast is all mixed up. I can tell that it's all mixed up. Nothing at the top. And now I have to let it set for 10 minutes because in the 10 minutes, it's gonna rise above a cup. It probably only goes up about half cup, but you'll see it, like you'll notice it rising. Just on my timer for 10 minutes, and I'm gonna go ahead and review my recipe just to make sure I'm doing everything correctly and getting everything prepped and ready for the next part of the recipe. Because in the next part of the recipe, basically what we're gonna do is once the base, I guess you could call it, of the recipe is all like prepared, then we're just gonna add our remaining dough ingredients to make the dough. So again, all I've done so far is combined milk, sugar, and the fast acting dry yeast packets to make the yeast form and bubble, which will make our dough rise. So once the milk has risen and all that, it takes 10 minutes. We're then gonna go ahead and add the remaining ingredients to our mixing bowl and mix them all together, and then add that liquid into the bowl, and that's gonna form our big fluffy dough, which is gonna be the bread for the cinnamon rolls. So I'm honestly super excited for these. I love making cinnamon rolls. I always make them for the holidays, but I decided to make them for her birthday, and I've never done them for birthdays because, yeah. But I felt like doing it for her birthday just because I didn't know if we would see her around the holidays, just because due to COVID, I don't know if she's like, you know, really going out. I really don't know, so I just wanted to make them for her because I don't know when I would see her. But I usually always make the cinnamon rolls around Thanksgiving time, not around Thanksgiving time. I make them on Thanksgiving and then on Christmas Day. And I don't make them any other time. I don't even make them for the New Year's, even though I should. But I just feel like that's like a lot of work, because I feel like we have cinnamon rolls in November. And usually November is like middle, like Thanksgiving is like usually like middle November, second to last week November. And then after that, we go to Christmas, right? Then we have Christmas Day, which is like middle of December, you know. And then like literally the week after that, we have New Year's. So I feel like literally by the time New Year's comes, we're kind of still finishing off the cinnamon rolls that we had for Christmas Day. So I feel like if I were to make more cinnamon rolls on New Year's Eve / day, we would have like weeks worth of cinnamon rolls. And this batch doesn't make like enough to feed like a whole village or something. It's probably like 10 to like 12 cinnamon rolls, but that's depending on how much you cut it, because like it'll make more sense when I show you the clip, but I'm not gonna talk about it right now because it'll be too confusing. But basically, when it's all like rolled up and everything, you cut it to like form the dough and like, you know, the cinnamon roll shape. But if you cut it too thin, you know, it won't be good, and like all the stuff will be leaking out. If you cut it too thick, then it takes like more dough, which means you'll have like less amount of cinnamon rolls. So you kind of gotta, with this recipe, it's kind of everything has to be just right, if that makes sense, you know? Leave the dough in this big pot, but usually I wash everything because we're gonna be using that mixing bowl again a little bit later. I forgot to get my other metal big mixing bowl, because we have that mixing bowl, but then we have this big, huge one that the dough is going to go in. Went ahead and checked my timer. I only have 6 minutes left. And so far, this is what the yeast has been doing. Now, I'm going to get on my knees for this because I want to show you guys 2 shots of the yeast and what it's doing. So this is what the yeast looks like from top. You can't really see, but you can kind of tell that it's bubbly. I'm on my knees right now. We're level to level. This is 1 cup where I started off. Milk and sugar and the yeast. This is the yeast rising. So the yeast rised the milk and all those ingredients about a 1/3 cup. So we started off at 1 cup, and then it made it rise to about 1/3. So it basically rose it 1/3 out of the 1 cup. The way you know you didn't kill your yeast is, for one, it would not be rising. So if you killed your yeast, it wouldn't move at all. It would have just stayed at the 1 cup, or it wouldn't have moved at all. It wouldn't have moved at all. The second way you know is that it's all bubbly and foamy at the top. All that foam is part of the yeast growing on the milk and all that. So that's how you know that you made a good, not necessarily dough, but that's how you know that you did step 1 correctly. So then you can't really mess up any of the other steps, because this magical liquid, the holy liquid, which is just the yeast basically, this is what makes the bread become a dough. Because without it, it would just probably be like just flour and water, probably, you know, like that, like that's the best I can just like put it out there. But with this is what actually helps it cook and bake, because if you didn't have the yeast, it would probably just be like baking like pizza dough in an oven and it not really doing anything, you know what I mean? Because you can make Play-Doh, well, Play-Doh with just water and flour. So if you did not add the yeast, it would kind of just be like Play-Doh, like water and flour. That'd just be the base ingredients. So if you were to put that in the oven, it wouldn't really rise or anything, because there's no yeast in there, right? Because it's just flour and water. There's not yeast in any of those products. So with the yeast, it actually helps it cook and make it edible. And I'm pretty sure you could eat the flour and water Play-Doh, but like it wouldn't taste good. It would probably not be edible. So, and that's on fast dry acting yeast poo. So now, since that step is done, we're gonna go ahead and add our ingredients to form the dough. And then we're going to add this liquid, the yeast, into the dough ingredient. And washed our big metal bowl. It's currently in the sink right now. And I placed it upside down so all the water could drip out of it and it could dry naturally on its own, because I won't be using that till way later. It's only 2 and I probably won't be using that bowl till like 4:30. So now this is where I need the measuring cup. I should use the big measuring cup, but because I know that the yeast is going to overflow, I'm not going to do that. So I need 4 cups of flour. So I'm getting the salt ready, and I'm going to add some salt. I now have my butter, and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of it in the bowl. I'm going to crack an egg into the bowl. So basically I have flour, egg, salt, and then I'm going to add this in there right now. Make sure the blender is locked, and I'm going to start on mixing. So the recipe calls for 4 cups of flour, but you get the last cup of flour, so you added 3, last cup, and you save this because you're slowly going to add it into this mix. And now we're going to add the yeast in there. So I'm adding a little bit slowly by surely. And now you see that it's kind of getting everything. I'm going to speed it up just a bit. And I'm going to add everything in there. Looks like it's not done. So this is what the last cup of flour is for. So you slowly add it little by little. I'm going to turn it up just a bit. And then we're going to add it just a little bit more. Probably, that's good. So we're going to let it get everything, mix everything in there. And now the dough is looking like this. Just take the dough out, put a little flour on the base, and start knitting it for 6 minutes. Okay, so here's the dough. I know I'm kind of out of frame, but this is the dough. It's slightly sticky. That's exactly how we want it. So now I'm going to start kneading it like this. I know you can't really see, but I'm getting the palm of my hand and just pressing it out like that, and that's how you're kneading the dough. So I have to knead this for 6 minutes. So, and kneading this is just moving the yeast around, getting the right ingredients in there, and basically after the 6 minutes, it's going to be springy and not sticky. So, I'm going to basically the way I knead is it's kind of like you're like palm punching someone. You're just kind of like this. So basically, I still have a little bit of flour left, but it's going to be okay because we're going to be using that a little bit later as well. Okay, so I just checked my timer and I only have like 6 minutes left. Okay guys, so my timer's up and I'm gonna use that bowl, the one that I rinsed out, and I'm gonna place this dough in here, and then I'm gonna place a warm cloth over the bowls to like help it rise. Okay, so the dough's in there. In this part, as you can kind of see, it's kind of peeking out. Now I have to let it sit for an hour and 30 minutes. And in the meantime, I'm gonna clean all of this up. In the meantime, I'm gonna go edit the first half of this video, do a couple other things, and then when it's time, I will come back and show clips of what we're gonna do next. See you then. So these are how they look now. These ones, like all the fillings inside, so.